on track for the first payload separation in just a few minutes from now. Now, if you're just now joining us, we have just had SES-2 and SECO-2. That's the second of three burns for the MVAC engine, and it's been a great launch so far. Next, we have the deployment of Blue Ghost coming up here in just about 4 minutes from now. And once deployed into a lunar transfer orbit, the Blue Ghost lander will begin its approximate 45-day journey to the moon, where it will land on the Mare Crisium for NASA's payloads to perform numerous science and technology demonstrations, including lunar subsurface drilling, sample collection, and X-ray imaging of Earth's magnetic field to advance research for human missions on the moon and provide insights into how space weather impacts the planet. So very exciting coming up here. Again, Blue Ghost deployment is coming up in just under 4 minutes from now. And just to recap the mission so far, we had an on-time liftoff at 1:11 a.m. Eastern Time. And everything has been proceeding nominally. We had a good stage separation, which occurred about 2.5 minutes into flight. That was followed by a successful landing of Falcon 9's first stage on a drone ship. Just read the instructions. And that was also the 5th flight and landing for the specific booster that supported tonight's mission. And for those of you following along, that booster also supported NASA's Crew 9 mission, RRT-1, as well as 2 other Starlink missions. Now, just before the T+8 minute mark, we had a successful second engine cutoff for SECO-1, and that was also followed by a confirmation of a good orbital insertion. And that was the first burn of the second stage engine. The second one, again, just completed just a few moments ago. Now, the vehicle is currently coasting with the payloads attached. And we are a couple minutes away from the first deployment of our first spacecraft. Again, that will be Blue Ghost. And there you can see an awesome live view of the Blue Ghost spacecraft on board Falcon 9's second stage. We're just about 2.5 minutes from deploy of Blue Ghost. And this is a cool view. We do have the canister just below that spacecraft protecting ispace's payload there. So we do have 2 payloads on board. But again, the next milestone coming up is that separation of Firefly's Blue Ghost lunar lander. Just as a reminder, once Blue Ghost is deployed from Falcon 9's second stage, it will have about a 45-day journey on its way to the moon, and then it will have about 14 days of lunar surface exploration. So this is a pretty exciting mission. Very excited to see the spacecraft begin its journey here in just about a minute and a half. And once again, there you can see a live view of Blue Ghost there on your screen, still attached to Falcon 9's second stage. We're anticipating deployment in just about a minute from now. I'm getting some really awesome, cool views. This is looking aft at the MVAC engine with a beautiful Earth in the background. These lunar missions are really cool because the Falcon 9 vehicle gets to get really far away from Earth, and we get these awesome Earth views. We are approaching deployment of Firefly's Blue Ghost here in just about 30 seconds. With these live views that you're seeing here, we should be able to get a really good view of deployment here coming up in about 10 seconds or so.
Firefly Blue Ghost, separation confirmed.
And there you could see, and you also heard the call out for confirmation that Blue Ghost is drifting away from Falcon 9's second stage. From all of us here at SpaceX, it has been a pleasure having you on board, Blue Ghost. Safe travels. SpaceX is honored to be a part of NASA's Commercial Lunar Payload Services initiative to deliver science and technology to the lunar surface. And we want to thank Firefly for entrusting us with today's historic mission.
All right, thank you very much, Jesse and the SpaceX team.
SSE comm on ops.
Wow, what a ride. We're listening in
First
now.
command at 3.1 is to enable carrier.
Comm is go to enable carrier.
SE, please enable carrier.
You're listening to the Firefly Mission Operations Center team.
All comms be advised, SpaceX has delivered the separation state.
Flight FCI confirm that I see carrier enabled.
Copy.
Comms confirms carrier is enabled.
All right, Ray, this is your team. They're talking. You got the flight director in there.
Comm steps 3.2, 3.3, please verify at your discretion.
Right. So
Tell us what they're saying.
So right now you're hearing the team go through the steps that are required to power on the lander and determine its position relative to the sun and make that first communications contact. So those mission operation controllers just outside of Austin, Texas are going through that process. It's an autonomous process that'll take several minutes. And so, the spacecraft right now is approximately 848 kilometers away from the Earth, and they're going to start pinging that lander as it's going through this autonomous process. So we'll be able to hear that.
We're in range of the Hawaii ground station, and then in approximately 50 minutes, a penumbra event that Fido will update.
Right, so he's talking about that first ground station that we're going to make contact with. That's in Hawaii. So they're configuring that ground station to be able to make contact with the lander.
And to be clear, you mentioned they're getting ready to power up, but they have to establish that communication first, right?
Absolutely. So that autonomous process will take several minutes. So that's the power up process. And then they'll start sending what we call no-op commands to the lander. So it's just pinging the lander about every 60 seconds.
All comms be advised, we would drop off nominally.
And then we're basically just waiting for that kind of handshake, that just acknowledgement from the spacecraft that it's hearing us.
And that was a good call out as well, that they confirmed.
PD or Fido, if you do have the correct separation time, please comment in the logbook.
That SpaceX dropped you off exactly where you needed to be in orbit at 1 hour and 5 minutes.
Yeah, so that's definitely a really important check. Figuring out exactly where the spacecraft is step one. And then once you get your orientation, it's really forming that baseline of where's the spacecraft, what state is it in, and then moving forward from there.
is available for the trajectory.
Copy, Fido, please comment the expected penumbra time as well in the logbook.
So you hear Jackson there. He's our flight director, kind of walking the team through those initial steps of gaining signal.
And we jumped right into the work.
The file is ready, and we are working on commenting in the logbook right now.
That the Firefly team is doing in order to get that signal. We barely had a moment to soak up that separation, so we're going to re-cue that up right now, Ray, and I want to get your thoughts as the sun participated in a little bit of drama as it separated to go to the moon.
Yeah, you couldn't ask for a more perfect shot there with the sun in the background. Look at it go.
Sunburst.
It's beautiful. I need a frame of that. But yeah, you see it. I think how she stated it's drifting away. It's kind of a bittersweet thought, but it's on its way to the moon.
That was
Wow,
an incredible
look at that,
shot.
the
yeah.
sun.
Yeah. You couldn't have intentionally framed that up any better with the sunburst. Just
We planned it exactly that.
well done.
Thank you.
Well, the team is continuing to work, and we heard a little bit of flurry of activity because, as you mentioned and have talked about throughout the show, that this is the moment where the Firefly team really engages, the moment to acquire the signal from the spacecraft. If you're just joining us, we launched at 1:11 and 39 seconds a.m. Eastern Time from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida on a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket carrying the Blue
Or
Ghost.
can we expect
lunar
rate
lander.
damping in approximately 18.5 minutes?
Then we traveled, did a couple of burns for about an hour and a half, flying with various coast phases in between there. And then you just saw the separation at 1 hour and 5 minutes. And now, myself, Daryl Nail with NASA, and Ray Allensworth, spacecraft program manager with Firefly, are listening in to the communications that the team is doing as they work to acquire the signal.
Yeah, and this signal, it can take anywhere from between 5 and 30 minutes to get that signal. Anywhere in that is considered nominal. So we're right at the very beginning of that phase. And so, like you said, the team it's now time to lock in. They're all focused. They should start getting data very soon on those consoles.
And we're going to stay with it for a
To all
fair amount of
consoles,
time here.
the path to the BSP is available in logbook.
We're going to stay with it in order to see if we can get an early AOS, but understanding, as you mentioned, that this is not exactly an exact science, right? I mean,
Right.
this spacecraft is moving in its orbit, and you need a good lineup of the antennas on the spacecraft and those on the ground.
Absolutely, you said it exactly right. You have to get the spacecraft in the right spot, lined up with that first ground station in Hawaii. So there's a little bit of margin as to when exactly that'll perfectly line up. Like I said, anywhere in that time frame is considered nominal. But we'll start pinging that lander soon as it goes through this autonomous power-up process.
Let's talk a little bit about the path ahead. Once, assuming we get an AOS, what happens then? What will we see happen in the next few hours and then days?
So when we get that acquisition of signal, there's some very
Or
initial
can be advised,
health
SSE
checks that
has
we'll go
AOS
through.
standby.
Oh,
That was AOS.
how about
Incredible.
that? We have acquisition.
Con, please monitor your alarms.
We have acquisition of signal with the Blue Ghost lander.
Quite GNC and Ops.
gosh.
I confirm
That's
we booted
incredible.
the slave flight in idle mode, just nominal.
Good. Okay, good. They took a minute to clap and
Call out step numbers that you can verify in procedure 101.
And so, just a brief moment there, you saw your team applauding. I mean, you're feeling it too.
yeah, that I think I might have just had a heart attack.
Oh,
No, that's it's a great feeling, and wow, like we're talking to our lander in space, and we're officially going to the moon. It's insane.
that happened fast, right?
It happened fast. That's a great acquisition of time, acquisition of signal time. So that couldn't have gone better.
It has been incredibly smooth from beginning to end so far today. Your thoughts on what you've experienced as we've taken this ride into space?
Yeah, like you said, I really couldn't have asked for a better launch environment. That it went perfect, and then the sky out here in Florida, it's a perfectly clear night. When that rocket took off, it headed towards the moon. You could see our launch site with the rocket flying towards it. That was an incredible moment. But really, this whole process, the last several hours, it's gone so smoothly, and then just a cherry on top to get that acquisition of signal so quickly.
That's fantastic. Congratulations. Briefly, let's talk a little bit about what lies on the path a little bit further ahead. You talked about the next few hours and days, but ultimately, after 25 days, You're going to make a burn to the moon, and then you have the biggest part of the challenge of this whole thing, which is landing on the moon. Talk about that.
Absolutely. So we're right. Once we get out of that Earth orbit, we'll go on a 4-day transit to the moon, and we'll do our critical TLI burn to get us into that lunar orbit. Then we'll transit around the moon for about 16 days, and we'll get in basically sequentially closer orbits. We'll go closer to the lunar surface, and so we'll start going through these rolling comms blackouts as the lander goes on the far side of the moon, before ultimately going into our final critical burn, DOI, which then initiates that autonomous landing sequence. So those mission operations controllers that you just saw in there, they'll have to say goodbye for a moment. The lander will go autonomous, and it will take over. Our vision navigation software and our cameras on board will fully take over to get us safely to the lunar surface, and then they'll go back hands-on. While some of the payloads have orbital operations, the rest of the payloads are just beginning their mission at that time. So we'll go into a full lunar day of payload operations and collect as much science as possible.
And through those 14 days on the moon, we're going to do all that science with those 10 payloads. That's going to be exciting. These principal investigators will be there watching, monitoring, and it's got to be exciting for them. And then you're going to try to survive a little bit of the lunar night.
Just a little bit. So we don't expect to survive the full lunar night, but we will operate about 5 hours into the lunar night. And so we should really get to see some phenomenal activity with the regolith, that levitation that we talked about, and get some additional data, imagery, and video into that lunar night.
The views are going to be incredible. I can't wait to see the imagery that you guys are going to be pulling back from the moon. It's going to be spectacular, provided that you get that landing. And it can't be understated just how challenging that is. This would be the first time in 52 years that an American company or entity has performed a soft landing. You have the opportunity before you to do it.
Yeah, it's an incredible feeling. The team, though, has been really training, testing, and planning for doing just exactly that, landing softly on the lunar surface. And, if you look at our lander, we're a little bit wider, we're a little bit shorter. We've done over 100 drop tests on our landing legs, for example. We've done a lot of testing as much as possible, test like you fly, all of our software for that landing opportunity, but really doing everything to make sure that when we get to the lunar surface that we will land softly and we'll be able to fully operate all those payloads.
Well, we are wishing you all the best with the landing. You and the entire team have done such a fantastic job integrating, working with NASA up until this point. We greatly appreciate that, and I want to thank you for being a part of this launch broadcast. You did a fantastic job, Ray.
Thank you so much. This has been incredible.
Appreciate you sharing your insight and your knowledge. Well, that's going to wrap it up for Firefly, for NASA, and SpaceX. Our coverage of the launch of the Blue Ghost moon lander on a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket from Pad 39A here at the Kennedy Space Center. Again, we appreciate all of you watching. If all goes well, Blue Ghost is expected to land on the moon in late February, about 45 days from now. We will bring you that coverage live right here on NASA Plus. Until then, you can find more information about the mission and other NASA CLIPS launches by going to nasa.gov/CLIPS, CLPS. You can also get updates from Firefly Aerospace, social media accounts that they have on X, Facebook, and Instagram. We want to leave you now with a replay of tonight's launch. For everyone here at NASA, Firefly, and SpaceX and Ray Allensworth, I'm Daryl Nail, wishing you a wonderful morning and reminding you to keep looking up.
T-minus 15. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. And liftoff. Go Firefly, go ispace, go Falcon.
Vehicles pitching downrange.
T plus 30 seconds into launch, Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from launch complex. Welcome back to the live webcast as we prepare to deploy iSpace's Resilience Lunar Lander. Now, we are just moments away from the third relight of our MVAC engine, and that will be followed by another short coast and then deployment of the iSpace Resilience Lunar Lander. Now, this burn coming up is going to be a very quick burn. It's just going to be about 1 second long. And then it will be followed by SECO 3, that is second stage engine cutoff. And we're just about 30 seconds away from that burn. And in the meantime, we do have some live views there. This is looking aft at our MVAC engine. And this is just a 1 second burn. It might not look like much when we do have SES 3, but it will be quick and just enough, exactly what we'll need to get the payload to its targeted drop-off orbit. And there you could see we just had SES-3 as well as SECO-3, very quick third and final burn for this MVAC engine. And we are just waiting confirmation of good orbital insertion.
Nominal deorbit burn.
We got a good call.
Burn 3, not deorbit.
We got a good call for a nominal burn of that MVAC engine. And with that, it looks like we are on track for payload separation in just a few minutes. We'll see you back here at T plus 1 hour and 31 minutes. Thanks for joining us for our last portion of the mission today. We are just moments away from deployment of the ispace Resilience lunar lander, which is expected to happen at about T plus 1 hour and 32 minutes, so just under 2 minutes from now. Now, Resilience is carrying 6 payloads. Among those payloads is a micro rover called Tenacious. And during its journey to the moon, the lander will conduct a lunar flyby, and this will be the first by a commercial lunar lander, which is pretty exciting. Resilience's journey is expected to take about 4 to 5 months before it reaches the moon, and after that it will set down in the Mare Frigoris, where it will explore the lunar surface. Now we are just about a minute and 40 seconds away from payload deploy of the Resilience lunar lander. And so far we have had a great mission. We had an on-time liftoff at 1:11 a.m. Eastern Time. We had a good separation of the first stage from the second stage vehicle. First stage landed back on just read the instructions. And now the second stage, carrying the ispace Resilience lunar lander, has already completed its 3 MVAC burns. And again, we're just a minute away from deployment of this lunar lander. If you're just now joining us, we're just under 40 seconds from payload deploy of the ispace Resilience lunar lander. We do have some live views there. This is looking forward, where the payload will be deployed. ispace's Resilience lunar lander should be deployed here in just a few seconds.
ispace Resilience, separation confirmed.
And there it goes. You can see Resilience slowly moving away from Falcon 9's second stage as it begins its journey to the moon. And that brings our coverage of today's mission to a close. We'd like to thank our customers Firefly and ispace for their trust in us. We'd also like to thank the Eastern Range and the FAA for their ongoing support of our missions. This was our 8th launch of 2025, and we're gearing up for another busy year of Falcon launches and Starship flight tests. Check SpaceX.com/launches and follow us at SpaceX on X for updates. Until next time, have a great night.